First mystery, the Shinigami King's rules. The Death Note contains rules that even the Shinigami themselves don't fully understand. Deep in the mythology of the series lies a disturbing truth. The Shinigami King never reveals why certain rules exist, and some rules appear to contradict each other intentionally. Consider Rule 13. The fake rule Light created states that if you don't write a name within 13 days of your first entry, you die. But here's what most fans miss. The Shinigami King allowed this fake rule to exist in the human world without correction. Why would the ultimate authority on Death Note rules permit false information to circulate? The series never explains this silence. The Shinigami realm operates on a gambling economy where lifespans are currency. Yet the king never participates. He sits on a throne of skulls, never writing names, never extending his own life. How does he remain immortal? The manga hints at something darker, that the king might feed off the collective lifespan trades of all Shinigami, but this mechanism is never confirmed. Second mystery, the missing Death Notes. Officially, there are supposed to be multiple Death Notes in circulation in the Shinigami realm. We see Sito's notebook, Rem's notebook, Ryuk's 2 notebooks, and Jealous's notebook. But here's the overlooked detail. During wide shots of the Shinigami realm in the manga's later chapters, at least 12 distinct Shinigami are visible. Where are their Death Notes? The series establishes that every Shinigami must own at least one notebook to continue existing, yet we never see most of these notebooks. More disturbing is Harmonia Justin's comment near the end of the manga that notebooks occasionally go missing from the Shinigami realm entirely. Not dropped to Earth, completely vanished. The king shows no concern about these disappearances. Third mystery, the Unnamed Shinigami. At the manga's conclusion, an unnamed Shinigami appears to sell Ryuk apples. This Shinigami bears an uncanny resemblance to Light Yagami. Similar facial structure, identical mannerisms, and most tellingly, an obsession with the human world that other Shinigami find peculiar. The series never confirms if humans can become Shinigami after death. The rules state humans who use the Death Note cannot go to heaven or hell, but what happens instead remains deliberately vague. The unnamed Shinigami knows details about Light's story that only someone present would know. When asked directly by other Shinigami about his origins, he deflects or remains silent. This creates a paradox. If Light became a Shinigami, it would mean the Death Note's ultimate punishment is actually a form of dark immortality. But if he didn't, who is this mysterious figure who appears only after Light's death? Fourth mystery, Misa's halved lifespan. Misa Amane trades half her remaining lifespan twice for Shinigami eyes. Mathematically, she should have only one, quarter of her original lifespan remaining. Yet, after losing her memories and regaining them after Rem's death and Light's manipulation, Misa continues living. Here's what doesn't add up. Jealous died to save Misa, giving her his remaining lifespan. But Jealous was already near death from not writing names. How much lifespan could he have actually transferred? Rem later dies for Misa as well, but Rem's lifespan doesn't transfer because she died executing Light's plan, not purely to save Misa. The series never reveals Misa's fate after Light's death. The anime shows her standing on a rooftop's edge, implying suicide, but the manga leaves her story completely open. Did she live out whatever fractional lifespan remained? The math of her trade suggests she should have died years before Light's final confrontation. Fifth mystery, the origin of the first Death Note. Every Death Note must be created, yet the series never explains their origin. The Shinigami King presumably makes them, but why? The notebooks predate human civilization. Hieroglyphs in the Shinigami realm show Death Notes existing before human writing systems developed. This creates an impossible timeline. Death Notes are written in human languages that humans can read. The rules appear in whatever language the human user understands. But if Death Notes existed before human language, what form did they originally take? The Old Testament references in the series hint at Death Notes appearing during biblical times, but the Shinigami realm's architecture suggests an even older origin. Some backgrounds in the Shinigami realm show crystallized structures that could be fossilized Death Notes from eons past. Sixth mystery, the Shinigami Eye Deal. Paradox. The Shinigami Eye trade allows humans to see names and lifespans above people's heads. But here's the overlooked contradiction. Shinigami eyes cannot see the lifespans of other Death Note users. This means the eyes actively recognize Death Note ownership across dimensional boundaries. How do the eyes know? The Death Note never touches the metaphysical plane where names and lifespans exist, Yet somehow, ownership information transmits instantly to this realm. Even more mysterious, when Light temporarily relinquishes ownership, his lifespan becomes visible again immediately, suggesting real-time synchronization between dimensions. The mechanism behind this recognition is never explained. It implies the Death Notes are connected to something beyond both human and Shinigami understanding, possibly the fundamental fabric of death itself. Seventh mystery, the Memory Gambit Loophole. Light's elaborate memory gambit relies on forgetting the Death Note entirely when relinquishing ownership, but the series never explains why specific memories vanish while others remain. Light remembers being suspected of being Kira, but forgets being Kira. He remembers meeting Ryuk, but forgets Ryuk was his Shinigami. This selective memory. Deletion suggests the Death Note doesn't just erase memories. It rewrites personal history to create a coherent narrative without the notebook. But who or what determines which memories stay and which disappear? The process is too sophisticated to be random, implying intelligence behind the mechanism. Even stranger, when Light touches the Death Note again, his memories return instantly and perfectly intact. Where were these memories stored? The notebook itself shows no capacity for memory storage, and the Shinigami realm has no described mechanism for this function. Eighth mystery, the Mu dimension. The Death Note rules state users go to Mu, nothingness, after death. But the series presents contradictory evidence about what Mu actually means. The word comes from Japanese Buddhism, meaning nothing or without. But the Death Note's version seems different. Light experiences no afterlife, seemingly confirming Mu means oblivion. But the unnamed Shinigami's existence suggests consciousness might persist in another form. If Mu truly means nothingness, how can there be different outcomes for different users? The series implies but never confirms that Mu might be a mistranslation or misunderstanding by the Shinigami themselves. They claim to know where Death Note users go, but they also admit to not understanding many rules of their own existence. Ninth mystery, the lifespan. Calculation system. Shinigami eyes show exact lifespans down to the second, displayed in Shinigami realm numerals. But these numbers change based on decisions people make. When Misa meets Light, his actions should constantly alter thousands of connected lifespans. Yet the numbers remain stable until dramatic moments. This suggests lifespans aren't actually predetermined, but rather calculated in real time by some incomprehensible system. The Death Note can override these calculations, but natural death still occurs at the predicted moment. What intelligence or mechanism performs these calculations? The series never addresses this fundamental question. The Shinigami realm contains no visible technology or magic that could process such complex calculations for billions of humans simultaneously. Yet the system never fails, never contradicts itself, and updates instantly across dimensions. 10th mystery, the second, Kira's notebook. When Light sends Misa's Death Note to the Yotsuba group, something strange happens. The notebook retains killing power despite being owned by someone who never made the eye trade. The series establishes that notebooks dropped in the human world maintain their power, but this notebook wasn't dropped, it was deliberately transferred. The rules become inconsistent here. Sometimes touching a Death Note grants memory return, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes ownership transfers immediately, sometimes it requires formal relinquishment. The Yotsuba notebook follows different rules than others, suggesting not all Death Notes are equal. This implies a hierarchy among Death Notes that's never explained. Are some notebooks more powerful? Do older notebooks have different rules? The series never addresses these variations. Final mystery, the true purpose. Perhaps the greatest mystery is why Death Notes exist at all. The Shinigami realm is dying, literally crumbling into sand. Shinigami are becoming lazier, writing fewer names, hastening their realm's decay. The Death Notes seem to be accelerating this destruction rather than preventing it. The Shinigami King watches this decay without concern. He never encourages Shinigami to write more names or preserve their realm. It's as if the entire system is designed to eventually fail. But why create a death system with built-in obsolescence? Some fans theorize the Death Notes are a test or experiment by beings beyond even the Shinigami King. The arbitrary rules, the contradictions, the slow decay, all pointing to an intelligence studying how death functions across dimensions. But this remains pure speculation, as the series provides no answers. The Death Note anime ends with the world returning to normal, crimes rising again, and new Kira worshippers emerging. But the mysteries embedded in its mythology remain unsolved. The notebooks still exist in the Shinigami realm. The rules still contradict themselves. And somewhere, an unnamed Shinigami who might or might not be Light Yagami continues watching the human world. These mysteries weren't oversights by the creators. They were deliberate gaps meant to make the Death Note feel like a fragment of something vastly larger and more incomprehensible. The notebook we see is just one piece of a cosmic death mechanism that neither humans nor Shinigami fully understand. The true terror of Death Note isn't the power to kill with a pen. It's the realization that death itself operates on rules nobody fully comprehends, enforced by beings who don't understand their own existence, in service of a purpose that may not exist at all.